Hello, it's Rebecca with Laughing Eye, Weeping Eye Tarot, and I'm here to talk about my deck, the Colorful Tears Tarot. So, the Colorful Tears Tarot is out in 2023. This is following about a year and a half, 2 years on the release of the Shadow Speak Oracle. And this deck was really, I started it maybe about a year before COVID and was really thinking about we all got to deal with our shadows, and the world has to deal with with their shadow, and we all got to get into our shadows. And lo and behold, COVID came and it was shadow central. But during that time, I was also keeping myself immersed in the world of color by making these really colorful drawings. Um, and what I started to see happen was I was drawing the archetypes, but not in a formal way, not in a, I'm going to design a tarot deck way. And I started to look at the art and think, wow, these are some really powerful images of the archetypes, and a language for a new tarot deck thus was born. For example, here we have the Tower card, which shows the falling figures, but in my deck, they have fallen from the tower and now they're at the moat at the bottom of the tower, dealing with an alligator that has clamped onto their leg. So yeah, so that's fun. The Star card, I was thinking a lot about during COVID when I drew this, how we were forced to find that inspirational sort of like higher self, which is what I think of as the star. It's like this divine inspiration coming in. And we were forced to kind of find this and create this in our home space. And so we have this person here like singing, maybe the stars on their wall. They're nourished by this plant and this space that they're creating for themselves. So there's kind of a different take on some of the images. Overall, and by the way, let me show you, this is the box. I'll just love it. Um, so I guess overall, what this deck is about is it's about trying to get out of patriarchy, trying to invent a new reality. The deck is gender fluid. Card names have been changed to reflect moving out of an outdated system. So when we work with the tarot, and in particular, I'm thinking of the Rider-Waite Smith tarot, which I actually do love, and I'm not hating on this deck at all. But when I'm reading tarot for people, I find that a lot of the card names, the figures, they're all very gendered, and some of them are really kind of antiquated and difficult for people to relate to. So I wanted to make a deck that was getting rid of like some of those antiquated ideas and also created kind of like a colorful, fun atmosphere that wasn't, as scary canary as the Rider-Waite Smith can be. And the thing about working with the tarot and the Rider-Waite Smith system is that, cards like the Emperor or the Tower, which is the towers can also be about like corporations, institutions, places of power that restrict us. The Emperor, we think of domination, right? So when we have a tarot reading and some of these themes come up in the cards, it offers us a point of resistance. It offers us a way to see what we're dealing with and how we can rebel and push against that. And so the Rider-Waite Smith deck is great for that. However, I decided that I wanted to create a deck that reimagined reality, that created a language that is a different understanding of what our reality should be. And being, you know, a person that works with clairvoyance and visualization is, I think that we need to manifest the reality that we want to see by doing, but also creating that reality for ourselves in any way that we can. So that is how one way I can contribute. And thus we have the Colorful Tears Tarot. So I'm going to go through this deck a little bit more. I'm looking at my notes here. Another couple of things that before I get deeper in, this deck is really creative. It's very vibrant. It's all about like making and creating and you know, living in a free-spirited kind of in touch with your inner child type of way. And I think the element of play is really overlooked in our culture. So I wanted to create a deck that was about creativity, play. The fact that it's called Tears is also just kind of talking about how important it is to feel, to cry, to laugh, to do all the things that our very rigid society kind of tells us we're not supposed to do. Um, okay, so let's actually get into some of the cards and how I've changed them to envision this different world. So I have like piles of stuff everywhere. Piles of cards that I'm gonna bust out. So here's some major arcana cards that I changed that are very gendered. So I know I mentioned the Emperor already. Let's compare notes between these two decks. Okay, so here we have the High Priestess in the traditional Rider-Waite Smith. Is considered the psychic, but is also considered sort of like the seer, which is what I renamed it, but somebody that typically feminine that connects to the other side. But the pomegranates, the two poles, and the sort of like almost like very Mother Mary type of I don't know, very like this to me looks like a vagina, you know, an opening to the womb, and a lot of religious symbolism kind of shows the female body as like this receptive, receiving type of posture. Even in the Empress, you know, it's like she's laid back. She's just like, yes, I'm just here. But you know, I wanted to change this. I wanted to get away from that and also create a title that was not gendered. So High Priestess becomes the seer. Ooh. The Empress becomes the cultivator. I think of the Empress as fertility in the sense of what we create, how we connect to people, working with the earth, all of those kinds of things. It can be motherhood, but I don't really like focusing on that in the card as a topic when I talk to people. So I like kind of removing that as being such an overt part of this card. The Emperor, who emphasizes power dynamics and an unequal power, instead in my deck becomes the leader. A leader is collaborative, is team oriented, is community oriented. So those are a few major arcanas. I have some more that I'm going to show you here. taking me a second here to get all the cards. So these cards are very sort of like in the Rider-Waite Smith, very patriarchal and antiquated. Um, and they have like these very Christian elements. And I don't have any problem with Christianity. In fact, my dad is a Christian, and some other people that I love very much are Christians, and they're great people. But what I do have a problem with is how weaponized Christianity has become in Western society. There are certain aspects of the cards that I have out that have undertones of that. And it doesn't mean that these cards are only about that, but you know, those things are there. So I decided I wanted to create some new cards, to new card names to, again, work on creating and manifesting and visualizing a different reality. So temperance, when I talk to people about temperance, my own personal definition is about balance, wellness, um, health, taking care of yourself, self-compassion. But as temperance is one of the four virtues in Christianity, and what it really is all about is like not sinning, like not tempering your drinking, and like being, chaste and being reserved, and that just, I don't like that messaging. And traditionally when I talk about this card anyways, it's usually about wellness, and how many people really use the word temperance in conversation, except for when they're getting a tarot reading. So I decided wellness was a more appropriate name and fitting to our century and time. The judgment card, for me, the key word for judgment is awakening. This card represents rebirth, but with the angel here, it also, and the coffins, and the angel specifically has the messaging of the afterlife. And in Christianity, judgment represents the judgment day of moving into the afterlife, meeting God or the angels, and seeing what's going to happen. Are you going to go to heaven, or are you going to go to hell? And I don't believe in those binary thinking in places. So I've renamed this card Awakening. The Hierophant is interesting. I mean, the Hierophant does relate to mystical traditions, but in the Rider-Waite Smith, it has more of like a pope kind of representation. You've got like an old powerful white dude. What's new? And he's holding a staff with his little minion worshippers there. And yes, he is imparting divine wisdom, but usually when we talk about this card, specifically in this deck, it is about belief system tenets and structures within recognized structures within Western society, and often rigid ones. So, and when I read for people like the Hierophant, like what even is that? I mean, I know what it is, but like it's not really relevant to the type of language I like to use personally, and I think a lot of other people do. Sorry, I'm assuming, but if you're here, I'm imagining you're interested in what I have to say. And so I changed it to the Mystic. Major Arcana 5, the Mystic. Because a mystic receives universal truths or insights. It can be about one religion. I'm thinking of Hildegard von Bingen, who was Catholic, Christian, Catholic flavored. And she was a mystic, and she had these visions. And if you look up the paintings that were made about her visions, like there's elements of astrology and like other kinds of visual things that suggest like she was drawing in information, not just from the sort of like Christian framework, but also pulling in information from other sources. So I feel like a mystic is a little bit more open in terms of when you're reading tarot for someone and they see the mystic, it's like that could be any religion. It can be, it kind of like removes a little bit of um, that kind of power dynamic and imbalance we sometimes see with the Hierophant. I also changed the Hanged Man to the Hanged One. So that's a pretty easy, understandable change. I also changed the cards. Here they are. From the Fool to the Dreamer. And the Magician becomes the Creator. And next I'm going to show you a little bit about, so I've talked about the major arcana. Let's get into this minor arcana business and talk about that. So I'm going to pull out the aces of each of the minors. Ace of Scissors, Ace of Tears, Ace of Matches. I got to move over my little broom here. And Ace of Tapes. Sweet. And for comparison, we got the Rider-Waite Smith. So what you'll notice about the Colorful Tears Tarot is that I talked about like the creativity, but it's also like a deck that celebrates DIY. And this, has something to do with the fact that like I kind of grew up in Riot Girl era. We didn't have cell phones. We had copy machines. We made zines. We made flyers and hung them up in, coffee shops and things. So a lot of, I guess you could say it's an homage to that, but it's also in terms of bringing this into modern day, the spirit of being able to be creative and expressive and to celebrate creativity and to celebrate the idea that like we can like live joyfully and do the things that we want to, even if it's not like going to make us rich or famous. And also the thing that I'm trying to do with this deck is to show like, yes, creativity can also be a viable financial thing if you want it to be. And what is a reality that looks like. So you'll see a lot of the kind of cards and themes exploring that, especially with tapes. Tapes is the suit of pentacles. In the suit of tapes, artists make tapes. That is their currency, their financial income, the music, the thing that they produce to sell. It is their craft. It is the thing that provides for them. Matches replace wands. Let's just burn it all down. That's what I think. Cups is replaced by tears. Let's embrace our tears. Let's become beautiful swans. And swords becomes scissors. I'm sure many of you, if you were like me back in the 90s, you were dyeing and cutting your hair in the bathroom. Probably some of you still do. I've got you. This is for you. So, and with scissors, similar to swords, we talk about swords cutting things away. Like scissors cut off dead ends. They cut pathways to start new pathways. So I find it to be a very fitting symbol for swords. Next, I'm going to show you the court cards. Sweep these babies up. The court cards, as you know, are incredibly gendered in the Rider-Waite Smith, so I had to do something about that. And like people understand the concept of the king and a queen. Like it's something people can understand, like power, authority, um, accomplishment, right? But I think the difficulty with it is it reinforces this idea of people in power, and people at the bottom trying to be in power. That and we want to try to eliminate that or get further away from that so we can have more of a just society. So I decided to change the names of the court cards based on kind of like the keywords and the things that I use. As much as possible, I did try to kind of stay in tune with more of the thematic idea behind the courts that we see Pamela Coleman Smith has expressed in sort of the artistry of the cards, and some of the scholarship and the writing that we see around the Rider-Waite Smith courts. So the Page of Wands, I always think of as the explorer. So in my deck, it becomes the explorer of matches. And this person doesn't know how to, they don't know that there's any limits with using matches. So they just, their fingers become matches. And I love the energy of the explorer because they don't really know what their limits are, which can also be a little dangerous. The rebel takes that even more extreme. So the rebel replaces the knight. Like, I think of knights as like, they're like going out there into the fire, right? Like they're rushing in, they're taking risks, and that's the rebel of matches. So here we have a rebel burning, maybe burning a contract. I'm not really sure. What do you think it is? The Queen of Wands. Queens I think of as connectors. Often people that really care about the community, are very, very creative and resourceful. So that's why I renamed them connectors. The King of Wands and all the kings are renamed innovators. To me, this card represents mastery and accomplishment. And when I think of that, I think of somebody that is so skilled or advanced at what they are, who they are, that they're not only using what they know to create something or to evolve, but they're also like innovating because they have so much information. So that was my reasoning behind the renaming of those cards. Pretty fun stuff. What else? Okay, so the last thing I want to go through real quick is just to show you one of the spreads from the guidebook, and also talk about how working with the square format is basically like super rad because there's so many possibilities for reading the cards depending on how you tile them. So let me try to not mess up all of these piles of cards I have like sorted into like full decks and partial decks, and yeah, there's a lot happening behind the scenes. Okay, so these cards, I'm gonna give them a shuffle because I just sorted them and I don't want there to be any issues with all cards in the same suit. Okay, so if we're gonna lay out, let's just say you ask a general question. What do I need to think about in my life right now? And by the way, in the final deck, the card back is a different design. This is like an earlier version. Funky. So general advice would just pull 6 cards. You can tile 9 cards, you can do 3, you can do as many as you want. You make the rules here. So if we turn these cards over, they are facing all different ways. Wow. Okay. So here, if I look at these cards, to me, this is the key card. These cards are facing in the same direction. These cards are facing in the same direction. This is the outlier. So this I see as the challenge to this. This is a pairing to pay attention to, and this is a pairing to pay attention to. So as you can see, like the square format actually really opens a lot up for more of an intuitive reading. I go back and forth myself as a reader. Sometimes I use spreads, but I would say 80% of the time it's more of a fluid, drawing cards out, honing in on the card or the symbol, or little tiny detail in one card that's speaking to me, and kind of pulling the rest of the cards around that. So the awesome thing about working with the square deck is this tiling concept, where it's like literally like a Rubik's cube, where you can pull cards around in different directions, see how certain images are working together, and kind of create a new configuration. And that's something I talk about in one of my zines. I forget which zine it is, but you can also move the cards to what you think the outcome is going to be in the question. So, working with the cards in a very empowered way. So I'm going to show you a spread I created called, for this deck, I See All Ways. Just, I see all ways too. So this spread is sort of like the Celtic cross, but not using the Celtic cross. And it's not exactly like the Celtic cross, but there are elements of, we look at like the center card in the cross and like what's below it, what's above it, what's behind it. So this deck, or this spread, makes use of that. So let's do a general pretend reading. Whoever I'm reading for needs to know, do, or think about right now. So I'm just going to cut the cards once. Here's my pile. Okay. So I forgot to show you all my little notes first. So let me just hold up a card to the screen and I'll talk about it. So here we have the 8 of matches. And if the 8 of matches or any square deck was drawn in the upright position, I would consider this, what is happening with your higher self right now? It's pointing up. So what is happening with your higher self, or what do you need to know from your higher self? If it's pointed to the right, we're looking at what's in front of you. If the card is drawn reversed, we're looking at your subconscious. So what is about to break through the surface? If we're going this way, we're looking at what's behind you. So this I see always spread is about looking in all directions in your life, behind, above, below, forward. So looking at these cards, if we would rearrange them according to the draws, oh, there's a lot in front of this person. Look at all these things. Lots, all matches, the 9 of matches. Oh my gosh. This person is like blast off, major creativity, lots of momentum. Um, oh, and even this card, this is the balance. Wow, there's a lot of creativity, but it's leading, working with the connector of tape, so the physical outcome is going to be wonderful, and it has to be nurtured and protected. Um, this card here, I'm going to move this here. To me, this makes sense to go here in the center because being pulled upright, it's connected to innovator of tapes is higher self. Oh my gosh, 3 innovators innovating in 3 directions. So what does this tell you about this person in this reading? That they have a high level of skill, expertise, and they're going next level. And it's leading to the start of something new, the ace. So higher self, because this card is turned upright, this card is facing left. So this is what's behind you, what you're leaving behind. And here there's like a relationship. It could be a romantic relationship, a business relationship. It is in the suit of tapes. See, there's little tapes on there. So most likely it would be some sort of professional relationship, or maybe even a duality within yourself, or different options you've been considering, or things that you've been trying to unify. We don't have anything that was drawn upside down. Well, let's pretend that 9 of matches was drawn upside down. Then that card would be connected to the subconscious. So what is below the surface that is about to come up? Or, as we do in tarot readings, you can get a sneak peek of what's happening before the subconscious gives you a little bit of a rude awakening. So that is the I See Always spread. This is the Colorful Tears Tarot for all who dare to welcome a new reality. And I hope you all have fun with this deck. See y'all later.